So we're seeing a lot there. We're seeing a lot there too.
Good morning, everybody. I feel like I can't. How are you? I feel like I have to just do a more appropriate, gracious greeting of everybody here. So I'm going to come do one of these guys. Hello, folks. Doing good. I wasn't aware that there were actually women who were in journalism. I got that at 26 or something. So I'm glad to see that you all are here. Thank you. Jorge Ramirez. Jorge. Hi, I'm David Horowitz. Hey, David. Hi. Philip Murphy.
Sam Coaches.
Hey, Sam.
Hi, Mike Dan. Nice to see you.
Hi, Jim. Hey, Jim. How are you? Good. Hey, Governor. Hey,
Sam, Governor Jim.
Aaron, I'd love to come. Hey, Jim.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming.
You heard.
I did. One more time. Yes. Well, where? Hello?
Joe's not showing. He's in trouble.
How are you? Nice to see you. Good, good. Thank you. Sorry about that, Don. Just hi, yeah, 100%.
Great. So I'm Don Katz, everybody. I'm the founder and CEO of Roundtable, and actually the founder of Newark Venture Partners, where we are today. I just wanted to say thank you for coming, and just it's wonderful to be here with the governor. If you haven't been in a governor event where he ringmasters a discussion, it's really, I mean, he's Oprah needs to watch out. It's really awesome. And so I just wanted to just say briefly, we moved here in 2007 from suburban headquarters, and it's changed everything about our company. And millennials want to work here a lot. In fact, we've hired about 600 of them in the last 20 months, and they come from 22 different zip codes around the New York area, 12 different states, 12 different countries. They want to come and be part of the comeback of a great American city, and it's really something that I wish more CEOs understood, because you will have a better company, and you will have young people dying to work for you if you kind of get with the program. This governor and I began trading ideas a couple of years ago, and unlike sophisticated financial professionals or great foreign service professionals like he was in Berlin, he gets the idea of the power of big ideas. It was even in his speech, disruptive ideas, big ideas. That's how you change the world. It's not by honoring status quos or trying to retain the old. And I think that's why we're here. And I think his speech was fantastic. The idea of thinking big thoughts and breaking the box. I mean, it's really a chance to do this. One of the reasons we're here is that I did have experiences being on the Economic Development Corporation board and then chairing it and trying to turn that institution into a business attraction organization, and seeing, in fact, the way the traditions and the impediments to government-based investment, along with, frankly, nonprofit investment, along with non-specialized investment, that you don't actually kind of win. This is Newark Venture Partners. I would invite you to really understand how successful this is. This is a place that has drawn 3,800 different companies from around the world trying to get in here. There's a whole lot of really incredible companies here, and many of them want to stay in Newark and become part of this amazing turnaround. So it's a paradigm really worth looking at as we discuss the excitement of this Evergreen Fund that the governor's going to talk about.
Thank
Welcome,
you. Don, thank you so much.
Great.
We started swapping ideas, it's hard to believe, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
In fact, my wife and I started a nonprofit called New Start New Jersey, which actually had a lot of the seeds of the stuff that we're doing today in government. And one of our very first events we held at Audible, as you'll remember, a little bit of a town hall talking about the innovation economy. I'm incredibly honored to be here today. Thank you and Daniel for hosting in your Audible and Newark Venture Partners capacity. And by the way, you had a brand new deck about Newark Venture Partners when we first met. It was still at that nascent stage.
Yeah.
And look at this. If you haven't had a chance to walk around this floor just to see the variety of the pods of companies that are growing here. It's incredibly impressive. It's my guess that you all don't know each other. And we have unfortunately, we're a little bit squeezed for time, so I don't want to could you literally maybe start down here, just say who you are and what your affiliation is, just so, am I right in saying you may not know everybody around the table? I hope some of you know me, but beyond that, could you start, sir?
Yeah, my pleasure. My name is Jorge Ramirez. Good morning, everybody. I'm here with HIG Capital. I'm with the healthcare investment arm, affiliate of that firm, HIG BioHealth.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm David Horowitz. Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Lifelong
Dave.
resident of New Jersey, based in South Jersey, run a firm called Touchdown Ventures. Our model is fairly unique. We work with large corporations to manage their venture capital funds.
The Eagles could use you.
I am Ashish Vachani. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Reflic. Reflic is a talent crowdsourcing platform based in Somerset, New Jersey.
Great. Thank you.
Sam Cayucci, I'm the founder and CEO of One Huddle. We gamify workforce training, and we're an MVP investment. Our whole team's here in Newark.
Got a lot of football analogies over there. Great.
Hi, I'm Mike Diem. I'm the head of business and corporate development at Amicus Therapeutics down in Cranberry, New Jersey, and I'm a Rutgers grad. I'm glad to be here, but I do live in Philadelphia, so I'm going to plug the Eagles.
Got to get you back across to Delaware.
Tim Sullivan, the governor's team, CEO of the Economic Development Authority.
So Tim's we got two folks at this table who you absolutely, when we break here, you have to make sure you know, and Tim is one of them and Joe is the other. So, please.
Morning, Jen Velez. I'm with RWJ Barnabas Health, and I lead community and behavioral health and have geriatric support to me as well. So the largest healthcare system in New Jersey, lifelong New Jersey resident.
Great to see you, Jen. Thanks for coming.
Hello, my name is Aaron Price, and I'm the founder of the New Jersey Tech Meetup, which is the state's largest community of entrepreneurs and technologists of over 7,000 members. That also inspired another entity, which is called Propelify, and we're best known for the Propelify Innovation Festival, which is one of the world's largest startup events of over 10,000 people held in the Hoboken waterfront.
And so Aaron is a guy that I met and also started trading thoughts around the same time Don and I met. So great to see you and have you here. Please.
Jim Gutton, Tech Council Ventures. We're invested in New Jersey's most promising early stage technology companies, and we're the most active investor in New Jersey early stage companies.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Hey, Kathleen Kipdrick, I'm with Verizon, a little small company here based in New Jersey, and do state tax policy for Verizon.
Kathleen, I have to say this publicly, tore herself out of Burlington, Vermont this morning at some ungodly hour to be here. So thank you in particular for making the journey.
Hello, my name is Deli Oladapo. I'm with Prudential. We're headquartered right down the block here in Newark, New Jersey. And we're also proud to be a lead partner in Newark Venture Partners. I represent technology innovation at Prudential.
Great to have you.
Thanks.
Dan Borak from Newark Venture Partners.
You know Don?
Don Katz.
All right. Phil Murphy, ma'am.
Hi, Sonia Hollies. I'm the Chief Tax Officer at Conduent, and we're a digital business process organization based right here in New Jersey.
Great to have you.
James Baruth, President and CEO of the New Jersey Tech Council. We have been helping to nurture the tech ecosystem for the last 22 years and represent over 300,000 workers.
James, thanks for the nice things you've been saying publicly about our idea.
Hi everyone, Karen Parisi. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing for a company called Central Reach. We're a leading EHR, electronic health record, and practice management provider for therapists and clinicians who work with kids with autism.
God bless you. Great to have you.
Jay Body, founding partner of Connected Capital, and out of my portfolio of 30 companies, 4 of them are New Jersey based, so I'm hoping that grows a lot more in the next several years.
I love that. Get that to double digits. Great to have you, Jay.
I'm David Rosenberg with Aero Farms. We're a vertical farming company based here in Newark.
So David knows this firsthand because you've had a good relationship with the Economic Development Authority already, and God willing that'll continue to flourish in the years ahead.
Future project in Camden.
Great. Fantastic.
Chris Sutton, good morning everybody. Managing partner Edison Partners, best known as a growth equity firm located in Princeton, but also our last fund did about 10 earlier stage investments and looking to expand that portfolio in our newest fund, Fund 9, and really happy to be here and happy to help with this program.
Chris, thank you also for saying good things about our ideas publicly and behind our backs, so thank you.
Joe Kelly, Deputy Chief of Staff for Economic Growth to Governor Murphy.
Yes, so Tim and Joe, among others here today, many of them are outside this room, are 2 of the principal points of contact as it relates to anything related to growing the economy, which is an obsession of ours.
Alex Scove, I am the co-founder and CEO of Kid Guru. I bring greetings from the Jersey Shore.
Yeah, you live near me, I think. Don't you live in Rochester? Yeah.
Right around the corner, which is great.
Kid Guru, you can think of like a TripAdvisor or a Yelp for kids after-school activities, helping parents find the right after-school activity for their children.
Fantastic. Thank you for coming.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ramana, and I ran a venture capital fund that invested over $165 million in many companies in New Jersey, along with NJTC Venture Partners. And right now, I've co-founded and running a artificial intelligence and machine learning company in Homedale, New Jersey.
Fantastic. Also near us.
Bert
Hey, Bert.
Navarrete from Princeton. I run Tiger Labs. We're a co-working space and micro VC fund. Have a beer.
Hey, Bert, I think Tiger Labs is vying with Audible for the amount of times we've had events here as well as
keeping track. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly.
Hi, I'm Brett Schreck, founder and CEO of VectorCore. We're a high-tech company in the medical space. Number one killer in the world is heart attacks, and we have a new technology patented worldwide that has a cardiac electrical biomarker that can detect heart attacks and ischemia in real time and really derive a 22-lead ECG just using 5 electrodes. And, unfortunately, many of you will be using it pretty soon, unfortunately, but it's a great technology, and we have saved a lot of lives.
My extended family might be among your best customers, so...
Good morning, I'll wrap it up. I'm Kathleen Coviello from the EDA, work for Tim Sullivan, part of the ground team that works with companies like you all in the state to help grow jobs.
Yeah, Kathleen, I should have said that earlier, so I apologize. You're the third wheel at this table of important folks that others need to know. So a couple of, again, I want to thank Dan and Don profusely. And by the way, very much as part of our recently unveiled master economic plan for the state, I'm headed to Germany on Monday, and then after spending with Tim and Joe and others, and then after spending a significant visit there, headed to Israel, and most of the visit, certainly almost all of it in Israel and most of it in Germany, will be in the innovation space, including an event with Audible, Team Audible in Berlin with Don. So whether it's on this side of the Atlantic or the other, I take my hat off to Audible and all their progress and Newark Venture Partners and what you're doing to transform this great community. So a couple of framing points, and I'm not sure we have enough time to go around the table, but I would like your best crisp, pretty please, and we're going to have, this could either be viewed as a wedding or a marriage. So we want to view this as a marriage. We have a nice little hour together or 45 minutes together, but if we all walk away and we don't keep in touch with each other, that'll be a failed event. So don't feel like you've got to get something off your chest in this discussion, although we'd love to hear what's your best idea, what would you be doing that we're not doing, any advice you've got as crisply as possible. Think about that while I just give you a couple of framing thoughts. So, a couple of big picture ideas. First of all, I've said this many times because it happens to be true. New Jersey was Silicon Valley before there was a Silicon Valley. There's a lot of data that backs that up. Bell Labs, Sarnoff Labs, AT&T, Verizon now, the bio, life sciences, health industries, the medicine cabinet to the world. There's a lot of data that you look at Edison and Alexander Graham Bell, and there's lots of support for that. It turns out we were Hollywood before there was a Hollywood as well. I say that less often, but Fox and predecessor and Universal were in Fort Lee, and Edison invented motion pictures. So just a minor little detail, I wanted to get that off my chest. So we've let some of that edge rust over the past decades, particularly the past decade. We also, we would, if you said, what do you own in New Jersey? What economies do you own? There are lots of different pieces to it, but I would say largely on our best days, it was innovation and infrastructure. In the first case, the first instance, it's taken advantage of who we are, and in the second, where we are. And they feed on each other in a very meaningful way. Companies want to get born and grow up in places where they know they can get around, that it's an easy-to-use, accessible environment. And we've let both of those rust. I did a big event yesterday on NJ Transit related to an audit that was just done, and it's not pretty. The good news is it's within our reach, and we will get that. We'll reclaim that space as the nation's premier bus and rail system, but we're not there now, and shame on us. And it's not politics. I don't view this as Democratic or Republican. It has literally nothing to do with politics. This is the hand you've been dealt. Play the damn hand. And we haven't. And so, and I think of infrastructure in particular, fourth smallest state geographically in America, the densest state in America. We sit beside the largest market in the world in New York, one of the largest and fastest growing in Philadelphia. If you're going to get one thing right, you're going to get transit, and we haven't. So that's sort of one frame of sort of our DNA. Secondly, we've been violating Wayne Gretzky's famous "Why are you so good?" because I go to where the puck is headed, not to where it is. I would say we're coming out of a decade, and EDA would be a good example of this, where we were going to where the puck was. Focused on big companies only, indiscriminate really as it relates to high growth or high wage or not. Kind of turning our back on the startup and small business communities. So, we have, Bert has heard me say this at his shop. I think New Jersey has 15 or 16 incubators right now. New York has bordering on 180. Aaron and I have had that conversation. That doesn't happen by accident. And by the way, New York, we have the catcher's mitt out. I love New York, and I want, as New York goes and as it does well in many respects, the region does well, and that in particular impacts North Jersey, but it impacts Jersey generally. So I wish them nothing but success. But they've got 9 million people, so do we. They're on a postage stamp relative to the space we have. They're running out of streets to hang your hat on in Brooklyn, and it's going to cost them $35 billion to fix the subway system. None of that's true for us. So by nature, it's very expensive there. It's not cheap here, but so by nature of sort of the evolution, if we have a smart plan in place and we have the welcome mat out, if nothing else, we ought to benefit from some of the growth realities in our region. So this strategy of going to where the puck was and not to where it's going has led us in wage growth, in job creation, in poverty growth, unfortunately. I forget which numbers go with what, but 42nd, 47th, and 49th in the country in those three metrics. Wage growth, job creation, poverty growth. So for all of the big incentives that we've put out there, we've not solved any riddles. So one of the things I'm most proud of in the economic plan that we've unveiled, we focus on job growth. We focus on wage growth. But we also focus on shrinking meaningfully with very specific objectives and plans the inequities across race and gender. Very specifically focused on shrinking poverty in this state, which is jaw-droppingly high. By the way, the inequities across gender and race in wage growth and job growth puts us either at 1 or 50, depending how you look at it in the United States. That's not New Jersey. It's not 2018. We've got Freeholder Levy Jones beside me. I wanted to give the Freeholder a shout out. She and I bonded over some of the stuff many years ago. Pardon my back, Freeholder. I love you, and I don't mean to be doing that to you. So it's not just let's grow the pie, let's make sure everybody gets a piece of the pie. And we've done neither. And so one of the big ahas is and how do you do that? You focus, you invest in people, a lot in education and workforce development. You focus on communities, particularly the urban communities, particularly in and around transit. You focus on innovation, I'll come back to that in a second. And by the way, you have a government that's a lot easier to deal with, that's a real partner and not an impediment. Whether you're banging your head against the wall trying to get a permit, or whether you're looking at our technology, which is I think from the 19th century, not even the 20th century, that's got to change. So people, communities, innovation, government invest heavily in those areas. We believe that's how you get to achieving the objectives of growing that pie and making sure everybody gets a piece of it. There is a lot in that innovation block that I could talk about, but the one I wanted to talk about, which Don previewed, is we think, other than shrinking poverty and shrinking the inequities, the other big idea in our plan is this, and I think you all have some sense of it, and some of you, all kidding aside, James and Chris have spoken about this publicly and said laudatory things. The notion is an Evergreen venture capital fund, and it goes something like this. The state would auction off annually. By the way, we need to work with legislature to get this done. I'm meeting with the two leaders tonight, and we're meeting with a broader group tomorrow. This will be on the list. The general sense of it is that we're all excited about this. Yes, to some extent, when you're working on legislation, the devil's in the details. but I'm giving you a general framework that I think we've all sort of coalesced around, which is the EDA would auction off tax credits to probably big companies, and more often than not, companies that are based in New Jersey. The one attribute that they have to have is they've got to have a tax liability in New Jersey, otherwise they won't have any appetite for it. You've forgotten more about this than I know. Rough numbers, expecting to get 90 cents on the dollar or more, auctioning off sort of $60 million of tax credits a year with an objective to get 50. And this is a 5-year, with the legislature, these things come in 5-year intervals, so you've got a $250 million over 5 years, 50 times 5. Why is that company, why does big company A get selected as a winner? Two bases. Again, they get to the dance because they've got a tax liability, otherwise they would have no interest in buying the credit. They get selected as a winner for 2 reasons. One is price. This is, we want every penny we can get, let there be no doubt about it. But importantly, and this is the important piece, the extent to which they present a plan where they will mentor or help develop a network for the startup culture in the state. So it's on both a hard science as well as a soft science set of criteria that you get to be a winner. We take the proceeds and we put them alongside private venture money, a lot represented here, and maybe folks who come from out of state as well. So there's no restriction on where that should go, but I want to make sure we give a hug to the home team, obviously. You put that, let's say 50 annually, alongside an equal amount of private venture money. And that money is put to work on the startup community in New Jersey. That's the one prerequisite. It's got to be a New Jersey-based entity. And we have to define that with the legislature. Something like Tim and I were talking this morning, something like at least 75% of your workforce or something like that has to be in Jersey. The investment decision, thank God for everybody who's going to be an investor, will not be made by me or anyone in government. Although EDA has had a fairly long track record in a fund of funds, and they've done pretty darn well, I have to say, over the years. The decisions on investment will be made by the venture firms, as they should be. And I think we're going to want to target the same sectors, Tim, that we've targeted in our master plan. So that's going to be things that you would expect to be in the innovation space, but it also includes things like fintech, insurance tech, things that are film and movie, media, startups, etc. That's the idea. Again, you do this annually. You get you put to work $500 million to work over that period of time. We think it's a big idea. You all will have to, you'll all react to that. Again, we need some of the plan we're already running down the road with. Tim and Joe and I announced a month or two ago, I'm just forgetting, we got so many NJs, the incubator, NJ Ignite, which is a program already in place, which is to allow an incubator, to allow companies and incubators to get some help with rent and overhead to free up more of their capital to put into R&D and product development. So that's an example of stuff that's already happening. This idea needs to get baked, as I said, and we're not waiting until the current generation of tax incentives expires at the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th of next year. We're not waiting. So we're rolling sleeves up and starting to develop the framework of that literally now. I'd love to get people's reaction either specifically to that, or if I were in your shoes, Murphy, I would be doing X or Y, or what should we not be doing? And I don't know if I want to systematically, I'm concerned about the clock. We have about 15 or 20 minutes for me to shut up and for you to weigh in. James, you want to start? Reaction generally or specific to this?
Generally, we're delighted with this effort, right? We have a lot of smart investors in this room, some of the best in the country around this table. And if we can supplement those investments in our companies, we are very excited about that. Additionally, as I mentioned, we need to fill the pipeline of entrepreneurs. So this will come down to your leadership in really spurring that. It takes some time, and we can work together to get that pipeline filled with entrepreneurs. Because we can have all the money in the world, if we don't have a pipeline of entrepreneurs and startups, then that money will go elsewhere.
Yep.
So that's a longer term play,
Yep.
and we need to address it.
So this is, may I just, a quick, I'm going to violate my shut up and listen vow. The way I think about New Jersey, in sort of a very much of a 10,000 foot, we remain a state of choice, and it's my commitment to continue to be a state of choice, and really among the top couple. If you're, and I'm ballparking this, if you're between the ages of 30 and 60, when you're in a profession, you've got a family, you care about education, and you've got to get to work. That's why NJ Transit, we have the #2 public school system in America. We have to stay 2 or 1. #1 in physics instruction based on SAT subject test, #2 in chemistry, highest concentration of engineers and PhDs in the world per square mile. So we're really, our stock and trade is between the ages of 30 and 60 plus or minus when you've got kids in the school system and you got to take NJ Transit to get to work. We're less good after 60. Hey, wait a minute, 53% of the average property tax bill goes to education. My kids have graduated. And property taxes are high in this state. Help me, please give me a reason to continue to believe. We've got a whole agenda directed at that. But we're also lousy in the 18 to 30 range. We export per capita, #1 in the nation, high school seniors. And if that weren't enough, #1 in the nation, college seniors. So there's a whole range of things we're doing at that end. Making college, guess what, more affordable. So free community college is on our list. We're piloting that beginning in January. We think we'll reach 13,000 kids, or not just kids, people of all ages who are going to community college with a last dollar program. You do what you can do, get Pell Grants, do whatever you can. We'll fill out the difference between X and Y to make this thing. And by the way, you have to you're qualified if you're under a certain amount of income in your family. In this case, 45,000 and under is where we're starting. More tag grants, more EOF money, so making college more affordable. Having more cool cities and communities to hang out in and walk around in as Newark by the day becomes cooler and cooler. You and I met in Hoboken, Aaron, in places, however, that are also affordable. So we got to make sure that it works for the folks who fought and stayed, and that folks can afford that. But we think a startup culture is on the list of what would keep that 18 or 22-year-old in the state, whereas now they're going elsewhere. There's one other item on the list, and I will shut up, and that is deepening the relationship between higher education and the real economy. And we're in the middle of a lot of good discussions with the likes of, I was with NJIT's president the other day, with Rutgers, with Princeton. It feels like we're all sort of coming to that same realization that, hey, wait a minute, if they could do it with MIT and Harvard and University of Texas at Austin and the Research Triangle and Cambridge in England or Northern California, why can't you do it here? So we've got things like the Innovation Hub in New Brunswick where you could see, where we'll see Rutgers and Princeton and private sector and the likes of healthcare providers and others and startups in one space. So we think there's no magic wand to keep the entrepreneur and grow them here, but we think capital, deepening higher ed, affordability of higher education, a startup culture, communities that they want to walk around and hang out in, that in total that gets you there. I promise I'll shut up, please.
I think what you just said was what I was going to, so I mean, to me, the connection between the venture community, it stems from innovation. It's kind of like what Don said at the beginning. You need to take risks, and that comes from the university. So I think any way that we could get this program to be joined at the hip to a larger extent with where the innovation is happening, we've got some great places here, right? The Stevens, et cetera. So I would, if we can do that along with the capital and the entrepreneurs, to me that would be a great success.
I think we're thinking along the same lines. Jen?
I think this is tremendous. I don't have a question, more of a comment. I think, with all due respect to the industry that I now work in, healthcare, I think it's probably, research notwithstanding, probably internally the least innovative culture, kind of as an industry. And I think so. We're an investor in New Venture Partners, and it's tremendous to be able to say, here are 2 or 3 problems that we're trying to solve for, we won't be able to do it internally. Again, research notwithstanding, that's a whole different ball of wax. But to be able to say, anybody that, that you're investing in thinking of X or Y or Z, and when that answer is yes, sometimes the answer is terrific, we found a match here, potentially, or it's no, and we're back to the drawing board. We won't do it alone, so that marriage that you described earlier, I think is perfect. So to really support that culture in New Jersey, particularly in Newark, but statewide, is tremendous. So kudos to you and the administration.
I appreciate that.
Kudos to you.
Others, please.
David Rosenberg, Aero Farms. I'm supportive of the fund you just mentioned from the ventures, moving the venture community. And speaking from experience, so Aero Farms, we raised over $100 million. We're about to raise another big chunk of money. And thinking of our early days, if there's a party that can help fill out a round, top off a round, that's additive, that's helpful. And if that's in New Jersey and helps New Jersey, I think that'll help a lot of entrepreneurs. And at the same time, looking to where the puck's going, the current angel tax credit, or angel investor credit, I've seen that having limited impact for us. Whether it's Edison, Tech Council, venture partners, I don't think they're going to make an investment decision based on that tax credit. So it's in essence just getting money from the taxpayers to these businesses that's not really impacting where the venture dollars are going. But I think this could have a big impact. And then the last thought is, I think some of the stimulus, so we have highly skilled workforce as well as a workforce from a lower social economic demographic. And some of these incentives do help catalyze behavior, whether it's hiring past offenders, hiring long-term unemployed, or going to a certain demographic like Camden or wherever. So some of the incentives that the state could patch into a project, especially a capital-intensive project, could really catalyze something good.
Again, this is real quick. That is part of our plan. I should have said that up front. We are not just committed to a growing and hopefully world-class innovation ecosystem, but we're committed to the most diverse one, and including all of the above.
Yeah, can I add something along those lines? My name is Mike Anderson. I go by president. I grew up organizing, started in that building right there where the NAACP National Water Fund and Water Empowerment Program was when I was 15. And what we do in Impact Solutions is taking that model in terms of organizing diverse communities, leveraging financial technology in order to actually make sure that resources goes into this diverse people that we're speaking of. My question and challenge is, A, I love the concept, but I think, as you were kind of getting at, it doesn't necessarily incentivize that institutional capital to actually trickle down to, A, the founders that are diverse, nor the institutional managers that are likely to invest into diverse founders. Just by the language and rhetoric that I'm hearing right now, I would challenge everyone in the room in terms of seeing how we actually enact tangible ways to make the money flow into people that don't look like you.
Yep. I love that. By the way, we missed each other at Harvard by 29 years. No, but this merits a conversation which we should, in the interest of time, you and Tim should probably have, because we are actually, there are guardrails and specific steps within this that get to that, I believe, including, by the way, stacking incentives. So one thing we haven't talked about, and I want to give Cory Booker a shout out because it was his idea, that awful tax plan from Trump last year, not to get political, thought I just did. The one good part of it is the opportunity zone, which is high poverty census tracts. We were the first state in the nation to submit our plan. We have 169 tracts that are submitted. Double-digit numbers, I always forget how many are in Newark. Joe, do you happen to remember?
It's like 13.
13 of them are in Newark. So you can then stack incentives, and you put even more chum on the water for folks, private capital, to make decisions that they otherwise may not.
I was actually there when you guys announced it, and I called that marketing agency, and I called them, and the gap between actually, okay, let's make this going, after the avoidance, I realized they didn't really have it figured out. So when I'm talking about specific metrics, like how do we go from what we're about to do to this whole institution is set up to where you can get off that Penn Station and never interact with people, right? Because it's not quote-unquote cool. People live here, and people need resources and money to flow here that aren't avoiding this by taking private buses here. So how do we just close that gap in speed?
Great point. Please.
Hi, David Horowitz. Thanks again for having a great, innovative plan. I wish you best of luck moving forward with the legislature. So the part of the plan that I think is the most interesting is the part about giving an incentive for the corporations to provide the startup mentorship, which you talked about at the beginning. But I think it's going to be the hardest to hold those companies accountable. How are they actually going to provide that? And I think if we can give them some more incentives to put their own capital to work, corporations have a lot of money, they need innovation. How do we get them to put more skin in the game so that they're actually supporting these companies, providing resources? Because that's the risk here, that these companies get capital but don't stay in New Jersey, because as they need to scale, they're now looking to hire and grow their teams, and now they need to leave New Jersey. So great plan. That's the biggest risk that I see, and happy to, especially in our role of working with big companies, happy to get involved in working with your organization to help you think about some good ideas to de-risk some of the
Love it. So Don wants to jump in. I just want to say one quick one. So you're basically saying price is price. That's going to be easy to determine. But the soft stuff is going to be harder to...
How do we give them the incentivization?
And I think just as a general matter, EDA has been, and this is not due to anyone's fault at EDA, just that they've not done a good job of making sure people own up to their end of the bargain. David's an example, somebody where he has, and that's a great relationship, but that's not been the case across the board. So we're committed to that as a general matter, and specifically, I hear you, to this aspect of it. Don.
So I just am struck by what you said. It's really important that people understand there is a concatenation of investment that creates equality on the ground. It's pretty complicated, and it's not for everybody in the sense that it does, if you have to look at Moretti, the professor who does the Rubel economics, you have to look at a place like Berlin that had no startups. When we moved 12 people there, we have 200 now where we're going.
When did you start there? Remind me.
So 2008. And so we came in 2009 as the ambassador. Right?
Yes.
But you do end up with jobs at all levels if you do this right. But let me just say one thing that's just in the room, which is that when this incentivization of capital, if you are a VP or an SVP whose job it is to manage this part of a corporation's life with all the impacted capital in this state, which is profound. We may not have all these metrics that the governor talked about, but boy, there's a lot of money sitting on the sideline, including in philanthropic trusts and all kinds of places it shouldn't be. My guy, Colin Newman, raise your hand, is a VP reporting to me, but his job is creating equality on the street in Newark. It's not to manage a process. So if you've got a CEO who didn't start the company, number one, and doesn't have about 10 direct angel investments in his portfolio, 10 at least, then you just have to get them to do the right thing. That's your job from here on out. It's not the same as managing.
Let me just, one or two more here, we may have to wrap it up. Sir, actually, why don't you, the two of you, side by side.
My name is Ramana. Great program, absolutely encouraging. The challenge that we should also address is attracting the innovative talent. As an example, Avlino has partnered with many research institutes in AI, blockchain, machine learning. The students there are absolutely interested in working on the projects, but upon graduation, we are 50-50 in trying to bring them to New Jersey. Therefore, something needs to be done to do the brand building, where now these tech students are forgetting to ask, how far are you from Bell Labs? They ask, how far are you from New York City? So that metric that we were at one point innovation capital, the transistor was born here, entire information technology was born here. Today nobody asks about Sarnoff, nobody asks about Bell Labs. These students ask about how far are you from Philly or from New York City. While we don't compete with those cities, but we are having a tough time in attracting this innovative talent to say that New Jersey is a great state because of these three reasons you should move.
All good points. I think we agree with you. So,
Push it down to the Jersey Shore, Asbury Park.
Alex, please.
There's a lot of talk here about VCs. Is there any ideas or thoughts around supporting the angel community as well? For very early stage startups, there is quite a yawning gap between friends and family funding and the VC community.
I mean, how early stage is your appetite, Tim?
Well, you're a lead buff, but I think the expectation would be that this will be pretty early stage focused and make a significant number of relatively small bets. And we do have the angel investor credit program.
These have to be like 10-second comments, please.
Yeah, just look on more on the...
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
It's really to look at the criteria. You mentioned about like 75%. And when in the development stage, it's fine fine to hit that 75%.
Yep.
But when you're past that 75%, the biggest cost that you hold off on is really the sales and marketing.
Yep.
And when you have to hire salespeople for medical devices, and I've been with the bars in
Yep.
the world and everything else, they move me all around the world.
Yep.
The problem is, for small companies, you have to kind of limit that 75%, because as soon as you start adding all the salespeople, you get
100%.
at that 75% range, and that's what you need.
Point taken, which is why this is in the devil in the detail category here. Please, you have your hand, sir.
Mike Dean from Amicus. I'll make really quick points. In the biotech space, it takes way more capital than anything you guys do on the tech side. And so I would argue to aim higher, because these guys that are trying to start companies are in a valley of death, trying to catch up on valuations. And then, so the more you can throw at them in the early days, the better. And number two, I would make non-competes illegal in the state of New Jersey, because you'll get people to jump ship more easily between companies. You know, I can't tell you how many people I've heard.
Well, that's a big idea.
Whatever employee at Genentech.
Wow.
But Silicon Valley and the West Coast has flourished because people leave big companies to start new ones freely. And New Jersey is one of the states where non-competes are actually enforced.
That's a big idea. Real quick.
I'll try to be quick.
No, you have to be quick.
Okay, I will be quick. So one, I think it's a great plan. I'm curious about whether it will be a draw for more of the growth stage company like David versus the early stage company where the best companies have some access to capital. So that's a significant concern of mine.
Yep.
I think there needs to be quite a few more spaces. We have champions in Don, in Bert, in starting spaces, but they have put, in some cases, their own, but certainly raised the capital to make that happen. But there's a significant lack of actual physical spaces for these things to happen. I think there's several hundred, actually, more in New York than there are in the potential 15, but I don't believe that number in New Jersey. And lastly, I'd say I think New Jersey should take some strong stances on a few things from a branding perspective. One could be taking a leading position on autonomous vehicles. There's obviously a transit issue. And I think we could pull drones into that. And I think leveraging the Newark fiber, there could be something with blockchain technology. I think there's a lot more, but
So those have come up, as have someone mentioned, blockchain. Blockchain has come up as an area that is pregnant for capture if we do it right.
Good afternoon. I'll make a quick point, kind of following on the concept that it takes a heck of a lot more capital in biotech and in healthcare. Please, as you're putting together the details on the venture capital allocation, this is a long-term business, and for every dollar we invest, we reserve another 3. So we need to be able to have confidence that this system or that this program can keep up in follow-on rounds of financing. Nobody wants to be in a situation where we have allocated our own capital, we're counting on capital from the state, and in a subsequent round of financing, not have the ability to back up our position. So please think about these investments we hold in our portfolio 5 to 7 years that can easily outlast potentially the administration. So think about kind of codifying the ability to maintain our positions and follow around.
Excellent. We've got some members of the press here. I want to give them a chance to ask a couple of questions, but I want to make sure that Tim and his team, Joe and his team, to make sure you all know how to find each other, because this, even in a short amount of time together, we picked up a few. I wasn't expecting to have non-competes illegal in New Jersey. That was not on my list. But so as a tribute to the women journalists in this state, I would like to ask either Anjali or Meg if they've got a question.
Okay. Governor, I have 2 questions. First, this is a business community who often probably fly in and out of Newark Airport. Monday night, holiday weekend, I happen to be there. And I'm flying in, it's around midnight, and we are stuck for more than an hour waiting for the air train to get to the parking garages. Part of your economic development plan was to improve transportation to and from the airport. How do you do that, and what do you say to customers who have had bad experience after bad experience at the airport?
Is your second question a more glass half full, maybe, or my favorite color, perhaps, or something? Or I'm sorry.
It's NJ Transit related, so
okay.
Want me to say the second question?
Yeah, why don't you say it, and then we'll.
Okay. Second question. Last night we had a Nightside reporter cover Metro Park. There's 2 stairwells. One is shut down, so passengers, as they get off the train, are forced to squeeze down one stairwell. It looks like a pretty dangerous situation. A lot of sound saying they felt unsafe, that they're going to get pushed down the stairs. Part of the audit found these different areas for improvement. Are you going to put some funding into fixing up these stations?
Absolutely. On that specific one, Dan, will you get to the team right away? Literally, we got to look into the Metro Park one, which we will do right away. So on both, they're sort of first cousins. They're not the same system, but they're both unacceptable. And you saw that we unveiled the audit of NJ Transit in particular. It wasn't the SkyTrain as part of that, but the whole moving around in either a rail or a bus, particularly rail. Bus has held its own over the years much more meaningfully than than the rail side. It's just all of it's unacceptable. So whether that's the Newark piece, which is under a different domain, or NJ Transit or a particular station, it's just not acceptable. And it's not just, I made this point earlier for a reason, it's not just in and of itself that it's unacceptable for you to wait an hour or somebody to feel that they're in danger going down a set of stairs. It's that getting it right is central to the economic development strategy of the state. So people say to me, what do you stand for? If you look at our budget or you look at it, we are all in on education and transit, basically. And it's our view that if you succeed, that you have a state that once again grows, and if you do it right, you shrink the inequities as part of it. So they're both unacceptable. I don't have a glib answer for your airport experience. We'll look into Metro Park right away. We think we've got the team in place at NJ Transit. We've given them a meaningful increase in funding when it was stripped bare over the last administration. They've now got a game plan thanks to this audit. As unattractive as it is, it does give a way forward. We will get there. We won't get there tomorrow, but we will get there. Angela, again, I want to give you a shot if you want to ask anything.
So my question is that there are a lot of different pieces on your chessboard right now, and so I love that you have an economic vision, but in order to make that a plan, what is the timeline that you have for this, for all this to come in place?
I mean, there's no, you've heard me talk about, and you and I have talked about it privately, the stronger and fairer New Jersey. It is, you don't get fairness overnight either, but you can make very specific steps on fairness, and we've taken a lot of them that get you to a better place relatively quickly. My favorite one is Planned Parenthood is unfunded for 8 years. We, within the first number of days, fund that. It's $7.5 million. It's in there. You're then immediately getting access to people, getting largely girls and women access to health care that they literally didn't have. It's a black and white reality. Or if you extend, as we've done through executive order, if you extend the list of maladies that allow you to be eligible for medical marijuana, you get people immediately, as I've had walking up to me in a diner, a veteran with PTSD, saying that we had changed his life. So not in every case. You don't bend the curve on the persistence of poverty overnight, for instance, which is where Lebby and I have bonded over the past several years. The stronger side, by definition, is a longer game. You have to plant seeds. But if you do it right, you can accelerate the growth of that tree. These guys, Don has done it brilliantly, whether it's in Newark or Berlin, wherever they've touched. They get that from that 12-person shop to 200 people in a very quick, smart way. So I think my job right now is to both plant the seeds, and I love the plan we put forward, but it is a little bit like throwing out the first pitch on opening day of the baseball season. We now have to play the season. But I like the plan a lot. I love the team that we have on it. I love the focus. It's up to us now to see those seeds grow and for us to find every way possible to accelerate their growth. This fund, we think, is a major weapon in that acceleration. You know, we think if you invest in education and infrastructure, you are, by definition, we believe you're going to achieve your aspirations. But we got to get there faster and not sooner. Sure. I want to ask Angela and Meg one more time. Do you have anything else you want to ask? No, you're not Angela or Meg, and I'm not calling you. I was so offended by that list of journalists that I want to make sure you get another bite at the apple. Even though I've got nothing personal against any of the people who may have finished ahead of you, it was jaw-dropping in its lack of a bigger sense. So, yeah, I can only imagine.
To follow up on it, though, on just a timeline for when this fund starts, even. Do we know when we can start seeing?
Yeah, so we're putting the pieces of this together. It has to be voted on before the beginning of the next fiscal year. So this is a 2019 reality. Okay. But the work on it is 2018. Absolutely. Meg, you good? I'm good. Okay. Who else? I can't even see back there. David, I see your hand up.
Governor, the tech sector is dying to get into the weed business, but the state legislature can't seem to get its act together. There's a lot of money at stake here. What can you say to them to move them along?
You really thought the entree to that question through, I know, because you had to tie it into why we're here together. So I couldn't accuse you of having an off-topic question. Listen, I'm seeing both the Senate President and the Speaker later on today. We've got a leadership meeting tomorrow. I know they had the big caucus yesterday. This is being baked as we speak. I'm based on what we're in active discussions, so this is one of the areas where we've been in active discussions for a while. I don't have a crisper answer for you, but I continue to believe that we get there eventually. Brent?
Sweeney said yesterday that 12% on the tax rate is as high as it'll go. Your reaction to that?
Yeah, I didn't. Someone said I was at 25. I've never hung my name on any tax rate. To be determined. Again, we're sitting down later on. I want to understand where everybody is, but this is still in process. Again, I think the big one for me on this, and I have to come back to this, is social justice. We have the widest white, non-white gap of persons incarcerated in America. That's not right. It can't continue. It's not the only reason, but a big contributor is low-end drug crimes, and we got to break the back of that. That's my first thing.
Perhaps on the win last night, by the way.
Oh, I can't even comment on that. Please.
Hi, Sam Sutton, Politico. Follow-up question on the Innovation Fund. What sort of returns are you targeting, either from an IRR, cash-on-cash basis? And how do you plan on recycling those or using those?
Yeah, I don't think we'll put a number out. I'll let Tim opine on that. But our sense is that we would plow the money back into the fund, assuming that we had success, unless we had wild success and achieved any of our aspirations beyond our high-end aspirations, in which case I would think we would put it back into the general fund of the state. Is that fair? I don't know.
Yeah, recycle the first.
I don't know that we'll put it. I don't think we'll put a number on the objectives. Gus?
I just want to override Brent's congratulations.
I appreciate it. I knew it was only a matter of time that someone would, so thank you.
But the lawmakers on marijuana have imposed the end of the month's deadline. Are you adhering to that? You want to try to get? I know you want to get it as soon as possible, get it right and all that, but is October 31st end of the month?
I mean, they're close. Honestly, they're closer to it than I am in terms of what the sense of their caucuses. So I'll know. We're going to talk about this again later on today, and as well as tomorrow. I think it's important. An obvious point. It's more important to get it right than get it fast, and so and I think that's got to we got to make sure that that's the case. Any other press-specific comments, please, Mike?
You made reference earlier to the overseas trip you have coming up next week. What are some of the specific things that you're going to do? What are your expectations and goals?
Yeah, so Dan or Eliana, do we put out an itinerary of this?
Shortly.
At some point, yeah.
Not yet, by the end of the
Yeah, it's still getting, that's also getting baked, by the way, in a different respect. But it is heavy on economic and investment. In Germany, it's going to be more skewed toward, not entirely, Audible's a good example, although Audible itself is a giant. It's going to be more skewed toward the big DAX 30 companies, so the big folks who in some cases are already here, like BASF and Bayer and folks like that. But a good amount of higher ed and startup stuff as well. Israel will be overwhelmingly, in the innovation space and higher ed space. And we'll get you, we'll send around, it's a very packed, I looked at it again, had a conversation earlier today. I just hope I can make all the meetings because it's back to back to back. I'm sure there'll be there's a couple I'm giving a tribute speech to the former foreign minister who was a very close friend of mine who's passed away, so I've been asked to give a tribute speech in his memory. So there's a few things like that. It also happens to be a time when a couple of the big Jewish federations are visiting Israel. So we'll have from New Jersey, so we'll have a home away from home opportunity to be with a bunch of folks who are going to be there by coincidence. So it's a good mix, but heavy economic investment in trade. I think we got to go. I just want to thank Don and Dan for hosting us so graciously. To each and every one of you, thank you so much. Let's make sure we keep the lines open. We mean it. This is not entirely baked. We want to make sure we get this right and take any input you have. So